Mid-November now in the garden, and although the sun is shining today, how many of us have been caught out this week with the overnight frosts? I know I was, so I think it's time now to start looking at some overwintering and some plans of what I'm going to be doing to protect my garden over the winter of 2024. Even though it's mid-November in the garden, it's still looking relatively good here. The plants are still flowering and the garden is still looking really good. I do tend to use a lot of hardy plants in my garden, which don't tend to need an awful lot of overwintering, but there are a few that I will have to take some special care with. Let's make a start with these Fatsia Japonicas. I've got a few of these in the garden, and they've been in the garden now for the last 3-4 years. They flower in autumn and they give some lovely flowers in the garden, really dark green glossy leaves, and these I just leave to their own thing every winter and they come through with no problems whatsoever. They are hardy down to about -10, and we're lucky really where we are, as we are in a coastal position in South Wales. We're not far from the coast here, and they really are a fantastic plant. They're still growing now, even though we're in mid-November, and these don't need any protection whatsoever in the garden. And you can see that they're really good for wildlife. The bees are still buzzing around them. They come in many different forms. This is the Polycarpa here with the green fingers, as they are called. And these also do well in my garden. There's also a very small spider's web variety tucked away in the border. And again, this one does so well without any protection. The Trachycarpus that I have in the garden, I've got a few of these. And as you can see, they're in all different sizes in the garden, and these will take temperatures down to about -10, -15, again with no protection, and they just come through without any problems at all. Lots of different bamboos as well in the garden, and they've all done really well. I think this one has been in the ground now for about 2 years. This is a Persecia rufa, and it's doing really well in its location. It seems to like it here in the centre. It's got plenty of room to grow, and this one does well too in the garden. This smaller one here is a Robusta Campbell, and you can see that it's got one cane that's really taller than all the rest. I don't give these any protection whatsoever, and they really seem to do well in the garden. Nice and easy to look after. This Dicksonia Antarctica tree fern, this has been a new addition to the garden this year. I did rush out last night and stuff the crown with some fleece, as we did have some low temperatures last night. And what I'm going to do with this is, on the cold nights, I'm just going to come out and place some fleece into the crown, and when the weather does get quite cold, I am going to wrap the top of this as well with some more fleece. I did get some fleece in the range, but after opening the pack, it's not really the best quality. So I will probably go back onto Amazon, which is where I normally purchase my fleece, and I'll get a few packs from there and hope for the best this winter. The Shefflera Taiwaniana, I just leave to it. And if you've got a potted plant, I would say to take it into the greenhouse or somewhere more sheltered. but this one at this size, this is the second year and it's doing okay. One plant that I will be protecting this year is the Musa Basjoo. This one here is the one that we've had the longest in the garden. This one has been in the ground since 2022 and it has been in different locations, but it's been here now for quite a while. And we did make the mistake in the winter of 2022 not to protect it, and we lost all growth down to the ground. You can actually see when you look at the stem that this is the growth that we had up to in the first year. And then moving upwards, if I just turn the camera up slightly for you, you can see there that from here to here is the growth that we've achieved this summer in 2024. So we're looking at about a foot of growth there in a year. The one in the centre of the garden, well, that one has given us 4 pups this year. So I don't really know how I'm going to go about overwintering this one, whether I'm going to do them individually or shall I wrap a cage of maybe some chicken wire around the whole lot and stuff that with straw or fleece. I haven't really decided, so I think what I'll have to do is when I do cut back the leaves on this, just to see what I'm left with and how I'm going to go about overwintering this one this year. I'm not going to cut back the growth on this though just yet, as it is still actively growing and I want to enjoy the bananas for as long as possible in the garden. The Yakarre strata is near the house in a terracotta pot, and this probably won't have any protection over the winter, although if it does get very cold I can always wrap the pot up in some fleece. The Salvia Hot Lips in the garden, that's still going strong, it's still flowering away, but after now we've had a few frosts it'll probably stop flowering. I'll cut these back then by half, and in the spring I'll cut them quite low to the ground so that they can start flowering again for the next season. My alocasia has been dug up from the garden and brought inside now as a house plant, and I've also brought my cactuses and a lot of my ioniums inside too, so the shelf is now looking pretty full for the winter. It'll be the first year for this cordyline divisor, and I'm hoping that this will come through without any problems at all. This is a cordyline australis, which is in the centre of the garden. This has been in the ground now for about 4 years. It doesn't take any protection at all and is doing really well. This rhododendron here behind me, this has been moved this year and I've put it in a more sheltered location. It's now against one of the walls in the garden, and it was up until the beginning of the year right in the centre of the garden, and I think it was suffering quite a lot there as it was getting too much morning sun and the buds just weren't forming properly. But this year it does seem to be doing a lot better, and I can tell already that the buds are doing extremely well. So hopefully next year we'll have a good show of flowers. The Mahonia soft caress also takes no overwintering, and I have a few of these in the garden and they all do well. The Miscanthus grasses that I have in the garden, I will leave these now for most of the winter. After the cold weather, when they really do start looking a little bit scruffy, I will trim them back. These salvias have done extremely well this year and they've really reached a decent size in the garden. It's the first year that I've grown these. These are Salvia Love and Wishes. Hopefully they'll overwinter okay in the garden, but if not, I have taken 2 cuttings as a little bit of insurance. First year growing roses in the garden. These did do extremely well, and in the next few weeks I will probably cut them back by half, and then later on in the season I'll cut them down again a little bit further. I have brought some of the plants inside the greenhouse just for a little bit of protection. This is a papyrus plant here in the corner, and this was in the garden and I dug it up and popped it in a pot, and hopefully it'll stay frost free inside the greenhouse. I also grow a lot of Crocos in the garden, and these now have come to the end, but I will leave these in the ground until they sort of die right back, and then I'll just clear up all the dead foliage and they'll come back next year without any problems. The Tetrapanax in my garden is now in its 2nd year, and I just can't believe the size that has gone on this in 1 year. I'm just going to leave this well alone throughout the winter and just let it do its own thing. The leaf size on this is just unbelievable. And it's hard to believe that it started off the beginning of this season with just 1 single stem about 6 inches high. The Persicaria that I have in the garden, this is Persecia Red Dragon, and this will just be left now throughout the winter months, and it always comes back the following year. The Hebes in the garden will also just be left to do their own thing, and hopefully these will come through without any problems. The ferns now in the garden are still looking really good, but I know that they will change in the weather. When the weather gets colder, they will start to brown off slightly, and these I'll just leave until the springtime, and every spring I'll just come out here with my secateurs and just trim back the ropey looking foliage, and they come back looking beautiful again. Well, I do hope you've enjoyed today's video and watching some of the plans that I've got for getting my garden through the winter months. And until next time, I'll see you all soon. Bye for now.